I could tell whenever I was getting more frustrated, more often with my spouse, lashing out, being kind of attitudey. And these are the things that I think really were the cause of this postpartum depression. Hi, my name is Marissa, and I am going to share my story about postpartum, specifically postpartum depression. So, I have had three children. In 2013, I had my first child, and she was a girl. And then 2015, I had my second child, who was a boy. And then way later in 2023, I had my third and final child, who is also a boy. And so I dealt with postpartum depression with all three of those after all three of those deliveries. Um, and they didn't initially start once I had my children. That first week and a half was just pure bliss and adrenaline and, excitement about having a new baby in the home. But shortly after responsibility, all the responsibility that comes with being a mom kicked in, I most definitely felt the postpartum depression kick in. I am prone to depression anyways, but I don't feel like if you can just get postpartum depression if you are already prone to depression. I have several friends who don't really have problems with depression or anxiety, and they had the same experiences as I did after having their children. So I think this speaks to a lot of mothers to share this story about my postpartum depression. So much or sorry, shortly after having my children, like I said, the postpartum depression kicked in with all three of them. I could tell whenever I was getting more frustrated, more often with my spouse, lashing out, being kind of attitudey. And these are the things that I think really were the cause of this postpartum depression. I did not prioritize my time with for myself at all. Um, Up to a year after having my kids, I can say that they were my only priority, and taking care of them was my only priority. Sometimes I would go days without taking a shower. Sometimes I wouldn't eat until maybe 9 o'clock at night. All of these things are things that were preventable, but things that I could not manage or I did not think about before having my kids. And they just built on each other. I breastfed with all three kids, and I can say that that definitely made me feel very isolated and made me feel like I was the only um, person that could help them with one of the essential things, being fed. And there are things to combat that. You can pump, and you can let your spouse take over for one feeding at least, so that you can not be attached to the baby, because a lot comes with that. um, but yes, just not prioritizing myself whatsoever. And so I had a really hard time with my first and second kid. You would think after my first that I would, decide to think more about these things with my second, but that second baby came so quickly after the first. I was surviving, and so with my third baby, who came much after, um, I decided to make sure that I set up a food train for myself. My friends did that for me, but I initiated that. I said that's what I wanted for my baby shower. I didn't want gifts. I wanted a food train to be set up just to make sure that I ate because I breastfed. And that really changed that third pregnancy. Now, I did still have some thoughts that I had in my first two postpartum, just feeling like I was attached to the baby all the time, that I didn't have any time for myself. But I definitely learned that that's one thing that you have to do to lessen the postpartum depression. Thanks.